Here you go.
Cheers. So you're going to tell us about the game then?
Oh, no problem at all. No problem.
The smooth, distinctive, independent taste of Banks's Bitter. What a result!
This famous stadium has seen many great matches and many great players, but only a handful of true giants of the game, men who have inspired a football public as knowledgeable as any in the country. This man was one. They loved Billy Wright at Molineux. They even named a stand after him here. But for the past decade, a local lad has been crowned king of the Black Country, a player inspirational to youngsters who kick a ball about in these parts and dream one day of wearing the old gold and black. Perhaps one day they'll name a stand after him, the greatest goal scorer Molineux has ever seen. Steve Bull, a player who's devoted a glorious career to one club, turning his back on the millions to be made elsewhere to stay close to his Black Country roots. A player who sets great store by loyalty and who sets out in every game with just one aim, to put the ball in the back of the net. Well, Steve, looking back in your career, what are the abiding memories, the good moments you really remember?
Well, the memories were, as I say, the England, the World Cup, third and fourth division championships, plus the Shape event as well. There's 2 or 3 medals there from the second, third and fourth divisions where we thought we'd never get, and those are the memories that stick in my mind. But there's a bit of a glow when you look at the trophy cabinets and all the pictures and the programmes that you've got over the years. It's absolutely frightening. You know, when you look back at the old days with me long hair and I had a bit of a party and whatever. But now I do look back at some of the photos and some of the old players that used to be there, and I think, oh, he was a good player, why didn't he carry on and why didn't he make it? But I have got great memories of the 80s football. Steve Bull arrived at Wolves in 1986. He was declared surplus to requirements at West Bromwich Albion and had been sold down the road to Molineux. His bond with the club and fans was cemented in the seasons to come, but it wasn't love at first sight. Just going back to those early days at Wolves, it must have all gone in a flash in a way to you. Yeah, he did in a way, but the memories, I can remember those the first time I went there when we played Chorley away, and that weren't winning championships or winning medals or whatever. We was third in Division 4 and was ready for relegation out the 4th divisions. And when I went there, I thought, what have I done here? What have I signed for? I come from like the Albion of the road, and I thought, well, what have I done? But 2 or 3 weeks into that programme when I got there, scored a few goals and we started picking ourselves up. I thought, I hope we're going to do well here. But yeah, I enjoyed every minute of it.
Because when you joined Wolves, they were literally at rock bottom. The club was facing bankruptcy. The stadium was decrepit. You must have thought that your professional career wouldn't be lasting very long. Well,
it didn't go like that in my mind. I thought, well, they were a big club, in the 1950s, 60s. And I know Wolves are going to be there again one day, which the stadium actually is there. It's just on the field at the moment that's lacking. But when I first went there and the stand was falling down and stuff like that, and cockroaches running all over the place, I thought, well, yeah, it's home from home, this.
Now, Andy Match was a special partner for you in those early days. How important was he to your play, do you think?
Yeah, it was okay.
Oh, that good, eh?
No, we had some great times. I've done a lot of forums over the past few years, and that question always comes up all the time, which favourite partner, No disrespect to like Goodman, Kelly, Ewan Roberts, not at all. They're good centre forwards. But I think if we'd have had Andy Much that year we was in the playoffs against Bolton, I think we'd have gone up, because we had an understanding where he was and I was, and we knew where the goals was, and it was a special special partnership.
How does that work really? Is it just something that's chemistry that just happens between players, or did you work at it a lot?
No, we did work at it in training, but half it come naturally. He's a scout, so he talks a lot, and I'm a black country, he couldn't understand me, so we got on quite well. And on the pitch, it was the same on the pitch.
For 7 years, it was one of the most effective striking double acts in soccer. Much and Bull. One to load the bullets, one to fire them.
The record speaks for itself. They seem to know exactly where each other were, where they were together. It was great seeing them play together.
Andy Much tasted Premiership football when he moved to Swindon in 1993. But even now, on a cold evening training non-league players, his warmest memories are of his golden years and a striking double act that proved the salvation of Wolverhampton Wanderers, taking them from the 4th division to within sight of the Premiership.
At first we didn't know each other very well. It takes a lot of time to gel, which it did do. I feel that as maybe a year and a half went on, we started to realise that we had a little bit going for each other. We had a little bit of understanding. So consequently, we worked harder and harder together to make that happen, and obviously we reaped the benefit from it. He had so much strength, mental determination. He had a fantastic strike on him, from anywhere. People might have said that his left foot wasn't as good, but I remember playing Bolton at Molyneux once. The ball came on his left side, just outside the box, and we're sort of saying, no, don't shoot, Steve, and he cracks it and it flew in the top corner. So he had courage as a striker. When the ball came to him, he didn't have the fear of missing chances. He may have 6 or 7 opportunities in a game. He might not take the chances, but the 8th one he put it in. A lot of strength of character. I remember I used to get up sometimes in the morning on a Saturday and I'd say to myself, well, I'm looking forward to the game today, go down the game, relax, have a joke with all the players and that type of stuff. Then we'd get out in the park, kicked off after 2 minutes, and Bully shouting, Muche, what? The 5, the 5. He wants us to get stuck into number 5 because he's given him a kick or something like that, and I thought, well, bang goes me happy afternoon here, you know what I mean? We're fighting for the cause together, and basically that's what we did. I got my first share of goals for Wolves, and I was happy to do that. I suppose my strike rate wasn't all that bad. The fact I played alongside Stevie and his strike rate was phenomenal. You can't take that away from him. He'd score goals week in, week out. You'd look on the programmes, he scored 4 one day, 3 the next, 2 the next week, and that type of stuff. And you can't compare myself with Stevie in that respect. Obviously, I was a different type of player, and I got great satisfaction out of knocking the ball through to him and he put it in the back of the net. But my ball wasn't any good unless he put it in the back of the net, which he did do. We played in a game once down at Sawton Sands in a friendly match, and I remember someone went down injured and the referee let the lad be seen to, and then Keith Downing decided to kick the ball back to the goalkeeper. So as he knocks it back to the goalkeeper as a friendly gesture, Bully's onto it like a shot to try and score, and obviously we ought to laugh about that because that was Steve all through and through. If he saw the ball, he'd go for it. Personally, it was very sad that when the striking partnership broke up, but if truth be known, I wasn't playing that great by the time I left Wolves. My standards had dropped a little bit, I had to accept that. I was lucky to have a chance in the Premiership, of which I enjoyed for the season, and I'm glad that I actually went and played there. But I certainly missed Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club and played alongside Stevie Bull.
It was Graham Turner who signed Much a year after he'd signed Steve Bull. With Wolves clinging to a place in the 4th Division, the club was at its lowest point in its history. When he went in for Bull, he'd been desperately searching for a goal scorer, and he found one.
You look at the number of goals he scored, they were instrumental in the revival of the club. I don't think there was a doubt about that. If there was a single figure involved in the rehabilitation of the club, if you like, it was Steve Bull. Played a tremendous part in it. And I think what was pleasing for me is, as he grew in stature, as he became almost a superstar and got to international status and went to a World Cup, the lad himself never changed. You know, I've seen players get involved at that level and the heads have grown, they've become too big for the club. Never affected Steve Bull one iota. You know, he was the same lad and the same player from the day he joined the club to, you know, through the World Cups and so on, mixing with all the big stars. He never changed his attitude to the club or its supporters, and I think that speaks volumes for his character. He really did have that sense of belonging at Molineux, and he saw it all through there. When he played, it was just that single-mindedness. He was going to score. Nothing was going to get in his way. And you look sometimes at players in the modern game and you think, I could still be playing against them, because they don't want to affect play by running in behind you. Steve Bull only had one thing in his mind, that was to get behind defenders and score goals. And he must have been a nightmare for defenders to play against him. He's had chance to move, there's been all sorts of talks of transfers. He never ever let the club down, never let the supporters down, and as a result they were perceptive enough to realise what they'd got.
Turner saw the player he'd bought in soccer's bargain basement 3 years before become such a scoring sensation he received the call up to play for England.
One of his best goals was scored for England at Wembley against Czechoslovakia. I remember being there when he volleyed one in from the edge of the box, and it filled me with so much pride that a player who was, I think he was still in the 3rd division then, could smack in goals like that at Wembley. I thought it was all ready for him to take off after the World Cup in Italy. Some of the older players, their careers were coming to an end, people like Lineker, Robson, Shilton, Butcher, and I just felt that it was ready for him to go and make a real impression on the international scene. I'd just got a feeling that perhaps he was discarded too early by the England setup after Graham Taylor had taken over. I thought he was ready for him to go and really establish himself.
Steve Bull believes Turner came as close as anyone to fulfilling the dream of every Wolves fan, taking the club all the way to the Premiership.
Graham Turner was a brilliant manager. You know, I mean, he took us as far as he could. You know, I mean, I think if he'd have had the money that the other managers have had, I think he'd have done the job. He'd have finished the job that he started. Unfortunately, he didn't, and he took us as far as he could. And as I say, he was a good manager. He was a good friend as well. You know, I mean, you could go and talk to him about anything you want in football, out of football, and he would sit down and like give you a shoulder to cry on. And but it was unfortunate to see him go.
Steve Bull began to wear the old gold and black in the darkest days at Molineux. Wolves, pride of the Black Country, were down among the dead men of Division 4, a great club that had once strode across the European stage, taking on and beating some of the continent's greatest sides, was on the edge of bankruptcy, hanging on for sheer survival, playing before crowds of a couple of thousand in a ramshackle stadium. But on the pitch, Steve Bull had begun to show there was light at the end of the tunnel. In his first Wolves season, he scored 19 goals just to warm up. Then for 2 consecutive seasons, he bagged more than 50 goals. By January 1989 against Bristol City, he'd reached his century. A year later on Tyneside, 1 for Bull against Newcastle. Another for luck. His hat-trick. And just to round off a good day's work, Then against Leicester City in 1992, it was 200 goals. Now Wolves' top goal scorer of all time. (1996) against Manchester City, and he became the top scorer with any Midlands club. And the goals kept coming. His 300th Wolves goal in 1998 against Bradford City at Molineux. And didn't he want the fans to know it? A record no other English player can match. Bull's exploits have kept Wolves historian John Henley busy updating the record books.
In the late 20s and early 30s, there was a man called Billy Hartill played for Wolves, and he scored 170 goals. And that record stood until the 70s when John Richards notched 194 for the club. But now, of course, they've both been passed by Steve Bull, who scored over 300. On the opening day of the 1996-97 season, Wolves played away at Grimsby Town, and Steve got a hat-trick that day, which broke Billy Hartill's record of hat-tricks for the club of 16. And back in 1988-9 season, when Wolves won the 3rd Division Championship, Billy got 6 hat-tricks in that season alone. When Steve overtook the great Billy Wright's record of appearances, he moved into the top 3 of Wolves' all-time appearance makers with Kenny Hibbett and Eric Parkin. And had it not been for the injuries that Bully's suffered over the years, I'm sure he would be at the top of the tree by now. I think it's a good job that Steve Bull's got a very short name, because I don't think any footballer can have signed more autographs than he has, especially in this area. I reckon it's well over 100,000 he must have signed in his time at Wolves. It's got to be more than that even.
Watch it now, here we come, here we come. Hey, honey, you're gonna get it, you're gonna get it. Oh, you're gonna get that woolly bully. Coming to get ya, coming to get ya. Yeah. Are you ready for this? Oh, here he comes. Maddie Doll had it. About a thing she saw. It had a one big horn and a well-edged jaw. Bully, bully. Bully, bully. Bully, bully. Bully, bully. Bully, bully. Watch it now, watch it now. Had it all, Maddie. Let's don't take no chance. Let's not be our stammer. Come on and learn to dance. Bully, bully. Bully, bully. Hey. Bully, bully. Bully, bully. Bully, bully. Watch it now, watch it now. Ah, that bully, bully. Here we come now. Are you ready for the bully, bully?
But no professional sportsman's career is without its problems. Bull's game is built on commitment and aggression. With the Wolves number 9 shirt on his back, he's the most determined of players. And in his early days, his will to win sometimes got him into trouble with referees. But for many Wolves fans, it's that single-minded determination to score that sets Steve Bull apart from the rest of the herd.
One of the main things about Steve Bull is he'll never say die. He's, 101% all the time.
That total commitment, the single-minded determination to score in every game, exacted a physical toll. But the greatest pain for Steve Bull lies in not playing Premiership football wearing the old gold and black. His most agonising memories are from the 1995 playoffs against Bolton, when he believes Wolves came closest to joining the Premier League elite.
How disappointing was that for you?
I think it was more disappointing for, 28,000 Wolves fans rather than for myself. But deep down in myself, it's like my heart bleeding, I thought, well, this is the year that Wolves are going to do it. We played them at home, we won 2-1. I think Shilton was in goal for them then, he's on loan. and he pulled off some tremendous saves that game. We should have won 4-5, but it never happened. We went down there, we weren't on par at the night, and I mean, they beat us 2-0.
But even after that bitter disappointment, Steve Bull's devotion to the cause never wavered, coming back again and again to score yet more goals for Wolves. Great Wolves players of the past are in no doubt about Bull's credentials as a supreme exponent of the goalscorer's art. John Richards, the man who was once the king of Molineux.
It's a natural gift that you've got, anticipation, being able to see something slightly quicker than the defender, being able to move when a flick on, or before a ball's even been kicked, to start the move going. And you can't teach people that. You can't take them to one side and say, when the ball's in this position, I want you to start moving. People do it naturally, and that's what Steve's got. He's a natural goal scorer. Oh, I'd have loved to have played alongside Steve at some time during my career. I think when you've got two players who are likely to score goals, it gives defenders all sorts of problems, and it gives the team a huge boost.
Robbie Dennison was in the Wolves side that stormed through the lower divisions in the late 80s. He remembers Steve Bull as an essential part of a team that played with tremendous spirit.
We all started off together. We started off where no one had really, well, apart from probably Ali Robb, no one had really got to the big time or played in big games or whatever, and we're all just starting off trying to make it, you know, and got a group of lads together who were prepared to work hard, and that's basically what it was based on in those days, like, and everybody pulled together, and away from the pitch as well, like, we had a good social side as well, which helps as far as the team spirit goes, like. So we started in the 4th division, and we got up into what is the new first division now, and we looked as if we're heading in the right direction. I think the first year we got up there, we're lying 3rd around January, February time, so it wouldn't have taken much just to bridge that gap, you know, but obviously probably the size of the squad and the quality of the squad at that time just probably wasn't good enough to bridge that gap.
Another member of that 80s team, Keith Downing, says Bull's the best finisher he's ever known.
And he obviously had great pace and tremendous strength, and the thing that ever stood out was really his shooting capacity, where it was such a ferocious speed, and you know, the ball would be past the keeper before he dived. It was one of those, and really, dare I say it, a selfishness around the box that virtually when the ball went into him, you never really expected it to come back. You know, it was obviously half a turn and a shot would come in, and his hunger for goals was relentless.
He's like my best player, and I'm really pleased for him when he scores, because he's a good character.
Pace. Precision. And power. The three qualities that set Steve Bull apart and have earned him his remarkable tally of more than 300 Wolves goals. It was his hunger for goals that won Steve Bull the chance to wear a shirt of another colour. The fairy tale continued, a forward pick from the 3rd division, the doubters queuing up to question the sanity of the England manager. But Steve Bull had the answer when he came off the bench against the old enemy Scotland, watched by a small army of Wolves fans who'd slipped into Hampden Park.
One shot just past the post, we knew he was going to score. He turned, got the deflection, down it went in the back of the net. We were all happy. We couldn't celebrate though because we were with the Scottish fans. Back into the car, the roof of the car came off when we got away from the ground, and we had a great night coming home.
That was 10 minutes of sheer pleasure and joy for me, you know what I mean? I was on the bench that day, and just in fact, John Fashionew come off and shook me and he went, "Come on, baby, I mean, get on there, do your business." And because I was new to it that time, I was a bit raw, and when I went out at Hampden Park and scored, it was unbelievable. I just couldn't believe it was happening to me. I did have a couple of shots before I scored, but when the goal came, I think it was Trevor Stephen, or Gary Stevens from the right back, knocked it over, just jumped up in the air, and it hit me on the shoulder, and I thought my instinct was he's going to come on the floor. I turned and it was there, and I just levered it in the bottom corner. I thought, well, it's Hampden Park here, I've scored a goal, and I could have cried at that time. I could have cried, and Brian Robson come, Chris Waddle, Paul Gascoigne come and hug me. I thought, what do you mean? It was like everybody, a big family. I thought, well, what have I done? And then you realise after you pinch yourself, I've scored a goal for England in Scotland.
The England manager Bobby Robson saw in Bull a player who would lay down his life for the cause. But Robson, who went on to coach several of the continent's top sides, says Steve Bull paid a heavy price for his devotion to Wolves in terms of his England career.
He faced good competition, and with Wolverhampton not in the Premiership, not in the First Division, but playing in the Second Division as it was then that made it even more difficult for Steve, I think, to break in, you know. But I had to be fair to everybody in the country. I looked at him, I liked him. Like I'm saying, he was an aggressive player, and he was a goal scorer. It would have been better for him had he been in the top flight. You know, to play at the highest levels and to play for your country, you've got to be playing week in, week out at the highest levels in the country. And that obviously was in the First Division, or as it is now, the Premiership. And he suffered for that, I think. He wasn't a dribbler, I mean, he wasn't a hugely, how can I say, talented player in terms of high technique and high dribbles and going through three players with the ball. He wasn't that sort of a centre forward. He was a bit like Lineker in a way. Anything across the face of the goal and Steve would be in it. So he relied on service. But when service came in, he never let you down, and he didn't fail because he was always there. He was Johnny on the spot. You've only got to look at his record, you know. It's not luck that he scored all these goals. It's about being in the right place at the right time. He was an instinctive player, and he read the play well. And he was a good, header of a ball. And I remember we used to do some crossing practices in Sardinia, and we always had a lot of people watching us for training before the World Cup, as you might expect. And we did this crossing practice, and for the strikers, and Steve, always seemed to tuck it in and knock it in the back of the net, and you always heard this roar from the public who were watching the training sessions.
It was in a warm-up game for the 1990 World Cup against Tunisia that Bull saved England's and Bobby Robson's blushes. The team were heading for defeat after the unfancied North African scored first, until Bull levelled the match with a typical strike.
The players took to him as well because he was a nice character and didn't put himself about too much and a little bit shy, and I think that's how most of the players saw him and took to him and liked him. He was good to work with. I know for a fact that he loved being amongst it. He looked around and saw what was around him, and he just was thrilled, I think, just to be there.
And for a proud man, Steve Bull's proudest moments came when he wore the England shirt and put the ball in the net for his country. Probably his finest England performance was at Wembley. In front of 80,000 fans, he scored not once, but twice against Czechoslovakia. It was a superb display of finishing that on the night was overshadowed only by the brilliance of an emerging star, Paul Gascoigne.
What about 1990 and the fantastic memories of Italy? That must have been a great experience for you personally.
It was, yeah, because there was quite a few strikers in the scene then, trying to get a place in the World Cup itself. But I did me no harms scoring 2 against Czechoslovakia and playing well in the other game, and that more or less guaranteed me a place in the World Cup. And when I says, yeah, you're going there for 6 weeks, or going there for that, I thought, well, 6 weeks away from home and cook breakfasts and dinners, and what am I going to do? But when we got out there, I was rooming with Platty, and he was the same as me, down to earth, and we got on like an house on fire.
How close do you reckon England were to actually winning the World Cup that year?
Oh, it was very close. I would say it was one of the strongest England sides. Apart from now, I think it's one of the strongest England sides I've ever seen and ever played.
Robson's successor in the England job, Graham Taylor, remained to be convinced by the claims of a striker who was determined to play his football with Wolves, one of the game's great clubs, but outside the Premiership and not regularly facing the challenge of meeting the country's best teams and finest defenders.
Was it a big factor that you were playing outside the top flight?
I was in the, top of the 3rd division when they first picked me for the Albanian game. From then, I went from strength to strength. But when we hit a certain spot in the England career, I thought, well, I mean, I'm only taking Premier League players, and that's when I started fading out. But it was one of the things, if I'd have gone to whoever, Newcastle, Villa, Coventry, I would have had probably more more chances of getting in the England team. I think Ian Wright, they give Ian Wright third, I think it was 15, 18 games or something like that, and he scored about 3 goals, I think it was. And I thought if Steve Bull had 18 games, I think he'd have got probably 8 to 10 goals out of me.
John Richards agrees.
I actually thought he was handicapped by not being in the first division, without a doubt. I think you get more attention, particularly from the media in the first division. It probably restricted the number of caps Steve actually got.
It's one of the ironies of football that Graham Taylor, after losing the England job, should become the new manager at Molineux. And it was under the Taylor regime in 1995 that Steve Bull came within minutes of leaving Wolves in a £1.5 million transfer to Coventry.
My view at the particular time, and it didn't work out for me all that well, because I think a lot of people took the wrong impression of it, that we were actually trying to sell Steve. The thing is that we had lost to Bolton, we being Wolves, had lost to Bolton in the playoffs, and Steve has not had an opportunity. He'd not played in the Premiership. And at that time, I felt that Steve Bull deserved an opportunity to go to a Premiership club if that's what he wanted to do. And he spoke to Ron Atkinson, because Coventry were in the Premiership at the time, and that it meant that he wouldn't have to move house. So everything was geared if Steve wanted to go to Coventry. Now, what happened in terms of the conversations with Coventry, I don't know. I was not party to that. But the reality of that was that Steve Bull, I felt, deserved the opportunity to play in the Premiership if he so wished to. The deal didn't go through, and he stayed at Wolves. When I was at Aston Villa, I actually tried to sign Steve and David Platt. I saw Aston Villa had been relegated to the second division. I saw a young Platt and a young Steve Bull as an ideal combination to get us out of the division. I signed David Platt, but I wasn't able, like many other people, to sign Steve Bull. His strength basically is that he wants to score goals. He likes to score goals. He's wholehearted. He's fully committed to that cause, and he was always a handful, as many defenders will tell you. We were within a game of the holy grail of Premiership football for the Wolves. I still feel in that season the turning point was the injury to John de Wolf, whom we'd signed from Holland. John had found it a little bit difficult to pick up the pace of the game in England, as a lot of foreign players do when he first came. But once he picked that up, he was an influential player at the back for us, while Steve Bull would be a very influential player for us at the front. But with John's injury, we lost quite a lot of the impetus. And I always look back and say that was a big turning point. Else, I'm reasonably confident Wolves would have made it in that particular season.
How close did you actually come to leaving Wolves when Coventry City were interested in you?
It was very close. I had 2 or 3, interviews or whatever, discussions with Ron Atkinson himself, and we finalised everything out, the deal, and the sign-on fee, the wages. We'd more or less sorted everything out, and I said to him the night before, I says, I'll give you an answer tomorrow morning. I woke up the next morning, figures full in my head, and I thought I'm going to be okay. Premiership football, higher wages, more this and more that. I thought, well, yeah, we'll have a look at this. And I woke up the next morning, and I just said to the wife, what do you think I should do? And she said, whatever you do, we'll step by your side, and if you go there, we'll follow you. If you don't, we'll stay here. And I says, okay, that's fair enough then. And I went back to the ground, picked the phone up, and I says to Big Ron, I says, sorry, my heart's through my head, and I'm staying where I am.
Do you regret that now?
Sometimes I regret it, but when I look back and think 306 goals, 13 caps and a World Cup medal, that's when I don't regret it.
So Bull stayed, and with regret and after a reign of only 18 months, Taylor left.
That I have tendered my resignation as manager of the Wolves. I am sad, because this has much to do with matters off the pitch as those on it.
And the revolving door at Molineux brought in Mark McGee, a man who'd been a top-class striker himself. Steve Bull credits McGee with helping improve his game.
We only encouraged them to do certain things, maybe more than they had done before. For instance, we tried to, explain to them and emphasise the importance of retaining possession when the ball was come forward, when there wasn't a goal-scoring opportunity there. And I think he took that on board and he worked very, very hard at that part of his game. And I think a lot of people were surprised in the improvement that came in that part of his game. But that was as much to do with the way we were trying to play as anything specific that we did with Steve. I think the way the team were trying to pass the ball from through the midfield to the front and making it more of a relay than a sort of direct game helped Steve to become a more complete player. You get strikers, different types of strikers who in the course of a game seem to enjoy different aspects of play. I mean, even myself as a striker, one of the things I used to enjoy was taking people on, beating people, even to an extent creating goals. None of that interests Steve Bull. Steve Bull, the only thing that he gets real pleasure from is putting the ball in the back of the net. The big disappointment obviously for Steve is that the huge contribution that he's made in terms of goals hasn't been enough to get them into the Premier League. But without Steve's goals, you take all of those goals out and even reduce it by 50%, which is probably would have been still a reasonable tally for some other striker. I think you'd find that Wolves in certain situations would have been down and out. Steve Bull is a finisher and a goal scorer, and people who score goals more or less score them wherever they play. Now, Steve Bull might not have got the 300 and 400 goals or whatever number he scored in the Premier League, but he'd get his tally year in and year out had he been playing in the Premier League. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Steve Bull, of course, always wanted to play his Premiership football at Molineux with Wolves, and Wolves fans remain grateful for that loyalty.
What's special to me about Steve Bull is his enthusiasm, his commitment to the club. It's his attitude when he's on the pitch, the way he carries himself off the pitch, and the way he sort of promotes Wolverhampton and the club to the rest of the world. I think the rest of the world knows Wolverhampton as Steve Bull.
And the rapport with Wolverhampton people has been a key in your career. I just wonder how much the relationship with people in Wolverhampton has meant to you.
Well, it's unbelievable. I can't believe it probably as much as I don't. There's probably about 20,000 I ain't even met out there personally. But you can say the 8,000 that met me say, well, you're the same as us. Enjoy a beer. Enjoy getting cards. Enjoy doing what we do. And I think they respect that, and they respect the way I play.
Do you think that's part of your success? The fact that you're very much one of them?
I think so, because I've never let my head go like a balloon and go straight up in the air and float away in the clouds. I've always kept my feet firmly on the ground, and they respected that. It's where I come from, the Black Country, and Black Country is steel, coal, whatever you think of. It's Black Country. If I could say to players on the field now, we were earning 5, 10, 15, 20 grand a week, I said to them, swap jobs with some of them for 2 weeks and swap wages. I'd soon pull the socks up and pull the shirts up and get out there and probably give you more.
Steve Bull may never have won an FA Cup medal or been in a Premiership side, but no other player has this particular accolade, a club fanzine named after him.
Load of Bull, latest issue! Big issue!
Steve Bull's link with the fans is born from mutual respect. They see a player who looks and talks as though he's walked straight from the stands onto the pitch to play for the team both he and they love. He sees the man on the factory floor that he once was. For Charles Ross, who edits a load of Bull, it adds up to one thing.
It's a question of a bond and a warmth which you see very rarely elsewhere in football. When Steve Bull takes the field in a Wolves shirt, the Wolves fans there feel that somehow part of them take the field with him. We're all playing with him, we're all with him, wanting him to do well. When he scores, it's a part of us scores. And you see the reaction when Steve scores a goal. He's straight behind the goal to the crowd like that. Yes, it's one for us. Not one for me, it's one for us. He plays the team. He's only ever played one way, giving it all, everything, all game, every game. That's how he plays the game. He plays the game pretty much as a fan would like to imagine we would play the game if we were only blessed with his ability. We're not, but he plays how we would like to dream we would play given that chance. Steve Bull has had any numbers of opportunities to leave Wolves, has always chosen to stay. He has got Wolves written through him. If he bleeds, he will bleed old gold blood rather than red blood. He is the lifeblood of the club, and it's probably significant to know that in terms of all-time leading goal scorers for one club, Steve Bull is in the top 10 of all-time players in terms of the number of goals they have scored in the league for one football club. That's where he ranks in the history of English football, in the top 10. There is a statue of Billy Wright outside the main stand here, rightly so. One day there will be a similar tribute paid to Steve Bull.
Except for a few First Division defenders, probably no one studied Steve Bull as closely over the years as press photographer Dave Bagnall. he's witnessed Bully's sheer delight at scoring for the Wolves.
Well, he's got a series of celebrations, but the three I remember most are the old finger in the air when he scored the first goal. He goes down on his knees and waits for the rest of the players to jump on him. But of course the most famous one of all is the old aeroplane when he scored a hat-trick. I've seen him do that on numerous occasions. I always pray that he comes my way when he does it. And on most occasions I've been lucky. The most recent one I recall was at Grimsby. I think it was the first game of the season. And it was a beautiful sunny day, and it wasn't a particularly good game, but Steve bagged 3 goals, and he could have had 5. When he scored the third one, it was pretty close to me, and I was using a long lens. And it takes a bit of doing to get it in focus when that happens. And he blasted the ball in. I knew it was going in the back of the net. I started firing, but the only thing I was praying for that was in focus. There was a long drive back from Grimsby, hoping it was going to be pin sharp, and when I got back it was absolutely spot on. People used to complain that I only photographed Steve Bull, but then in the early days Steve Bull was Wolves. I recall after they got promoted, I think from the 4th to the 3rd, and as the players came off celebrating, we were doing pictures, and I heard one of the players say to Steve Bull, "You won it for us." And Steve was a bit embarrassed, but the player was right.
It was here in Tipton that Steve Bull was brought up, a black country town best known for hard work and hard men. Before Bull, its most famous sportsman was the Tipton slasher, William Perry, bare-knuckle champion of all England in the 19th century, who packed a fearsome right to match Steve Bull's ferocious right foot. But although Tipton's just a few miles from Wolverhampton, to a young boy kicking a ball about with his mates and dreaming of one day playing professional football, Molyneux must have seemed as unreachable as the moon.
The first pair of football was a Dalglish Puma, and I think it was about 16 quid, and my mum got them for me. I thought, well, I mean, it was a start of something big. But I used to have my own ball as well, with the lacing in and the dubbing, and the old man used to dub in for me, and I used to go over the park. But the only thing the mother didn't like was me coming back with holes in my trousers or, I mean, dirty shoes or whatever. I used to be in goal in the school teams, but I was too small in the end, so I had to go out and play in outfield, and then I was too selfish outfield, so, you know what I mean? I was on the wayside in that way, but that was over about a period of 3 or 4 years. And then I went to Tipton Town. That was my first football signing, you know what I mean, for the club itself, plus a red line on a Saturday afternoon, so, you know what I mean, I was busy like Saturday afternoon, Sunday mornings, and then I was training Tuesdays and Thursdays and playing for the Albion Saturday mornings.
Although he arrived in professional soccer late, Steve Bull's become the ultimate pro, taking the knocks that come a striker's way but never complaining, always fighting back to fitness. But the injuries finally took their toll. Several operations were carried out on a troublesome knee problem. They helped, but ultimately even surgery couldn't repair the damage that had built up season after season.
I think anybody who plays football, I mean, week in, week out, and 2 games a week, trains 4 days a week, are going to, I mean, tell, like it did on me over the 12 years, wear and tear on my knee. But that's part and parcel of the game. You know, you have to live with it after football.
But even during his longest layoff, Steve Bull, the team player, still went to every home game, was still part of Wolves. His the autograph fans most cherished, and the player everyone wanted to meet.
Smile! At an order! Smile!
An ambassador for Wolves on match days inside the ground, and outside in his own black country, happy to appear at dozens of events every year, happy to put something back into a region, the black country, of which he's so proud to be a part. Pleased to be an advert for a great football club.
Have a shoulder that way.
Hello.
This way.
Look this way for a second. That's it, Steve. Thanks. Lovely, thank you.
Okay, here we go. There you go. Steve Bull, without a doubt, has been the most important thing that has happened to this club in the last 10 years. His loyalty and the pride he's given us in the club has been amazing.
Robbie Keane's just starting his career. He's benefited from Steve Bull's advice and learned from him the need for discipline on the pitch and in the dressing room.
He's helped me tremendously over the last 2 years, 2 years or so, you know. He's trying to tell me what to do, help me in every possible way that he can, you know. So, and he's a great ambassador, such a young pro like myself, you know. He's just unbelievable, you know. He's just to make sure you're doing things right, you know. tries to make sure you time your runs properly, little things like that. In the dressing room, he's good to the lads as well. To be honest, I don't think many people give Steve Bull a lip on him because you've seen the size of him. You know, he just be in the gym every day doing weights, and when you do give a bit of stick to him, we call it the squeeze. He gets you by the shoulders and squeeze, or get you by the hand, squeeze, and to be honest with you, it is very sore. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, to be honest with you.
Wolverhampton Express and Star reporter Dave Instone knows as well as anyone the pressures facing young stars and how Steve Bull has coped with the pressure of becoming a Molineux hero. He's watched Bull's career since his first game for Wolves and seen him develop into one of the game's great goal scorers.
He's very much a raw diamond, if you like. He came in, he had pace, great hunger and desire, but his finishing certainly wasn't the best. I remember in the early days in the 86-87 season, he used to miss a lot of chances, probably used to score about 1 in 3 of what you call one-on-one chances with the keeper, and there was a lot of work needed to be done, but it was done, and that ratio of accepting chances certainly improved. The rawness went out of him, I'd say, around about the time he was playing for England, 1990-91. I think that sort of smoothed out some of the rough edges, and he became a more rounded player. Still retained the basic instincts, if you like, near goal. He's never been a complicated player, never particularly been a back-to-goal player. He's always wanted the ball ahead of him to run onto. And I think that's one of his endearing qualities, that he's an old-fashioned striker, wants the ball heading goalwards, and thankfully he's sort of put it in the net time and time again. I think he may look back around about the period 1991 or 92 when Villa again came very strong for him. I think that's the time, if any, where he may waver and think, well, if I'd gone then, I'd scored, I don't know, 150, 160 goals for Wolves, maybe more. And Villa then would have been a top flight opportunity, obviously. I think when Coventry came calling in 94, was it, or 95 I think, I think possibly then he was slightly past his best. He would have been going to a club traditionally who struggled in the Premiership. I'm not sure that was a great move for him, but maybe the Villa one in the earlier 90s would have been his big move. I don't think another player in this country will score 306 goals for one club. I really don't. I think the fact that he's given 11 or 12 years service to Wolves, or 13 years service to Wolves. I think that's a thing of the past. Players generally move around a lot more these days. There isn't the same loyalty to one club. Defences are wiser and cuter. I can't see that sort of figure ever being approached again. He's a kid off a council estate in Tipton, the Backstreet International as he was dubbed, a working class lad, made good. He's been absolutely fabulous for this club, and there will be heroes, I'm sure, in future years, but they'll have to go a long way to match Steve Bull.
Steve Bull's contribution to the cause of Wolves on the field of play has been immeasurable. Off the field, only one man has done as much for the club they both love, Sir Jack Hayward.
No one can replace Steve Bull. I mean, he's been a tremendous, loyal servant of the club, and we can't thank him enough for what he's done to bring us up right from the depths of the 4th division to where we are now. And I just wish Steve all the very best. If he doesn't play again, God bless him, we'll find some role for him, and he's already doing a very nice job on public relations and travelling with the team, and I'm sure his presence is very much appreciated. But gosh, he's been a great player.
In his years at Molineux, Bull stayed while managers have come and managers have gone. He was probably closest to Graham Turner. His relationship with Graham Taylor, the manager who dropped him from the England team, was never going to match that, but Bull maintains they had a mutual respect.
Graham Taylor came to Molineux with a big reputation. What was he like to work with?
He'd been there, at the high level, and it was hard for him to come back down to our level. I know he come from Watford and whatever teams he'd done before, but when he come from England, whether he knows whether he was still up there or down there, but he gradually realised what Wolves fans wanted and what Wolves players are about. And it was a bit, it was a sad day again for him when he went as well. He was down to the book. Everything he did was down to the book, which I respect him for that, because the players automatically thought, I hope we've got a sergeant major here and we've got to do what he says we've got to do.
What about Bobby Robson? Was he the most successful manager you've played under?
He was, in a way, yeah, and as I say, he did well when I was there as well. His coaching style was absolutely brilliant, and I think that's what got him to take the English side to more or less the semi-finals.
Mark McGee came to Molineux with high hopes. What about his spell at Molineux?
He tried to bring his own ideas into the club. Some of them worked, some of them didn't, but that's the way managers come. But he did a good job when he was here, He was a strike in my eyes as well, and he pulled me back quite a few times, giving me tips on this and that and what to do and what not to do. and it did actually make me into a better player, and so that's one thing I have to thank him for.
And how about Colin Lee?
He's a good coach on the field, and he's a good coach off the field, and you get out there, you make them work, you know what I mean, whatever you've got, you work with.
Steve Ball, master goalscorer, has surprised himself with his last remaining ambition in the game.
I've always said to myself, I'm never going to be a manager at a club, but when you see managers come and go and what they do, I can be, and I think I will be one day. But the managers have been here, you know what I mean, they have been under tremendous stress because the fans want so much at this club. It's unbelievable. They just want success and they want Premier League football, and the managers have come have either nearly got there or ain't got there at all, and you know, I mean, one day it's going to be there.
Would you like one day to perhaps manage at Molineux?
Well, hopefully one day in the years to come. Hopefully my name's put forward one day and I'll be there, you know what I mean, with a bit more experience behind me. Hopefully one day I'll be there.
A few more grey hairs if you get that job.
Well, I've got quite a few at the moment, but you know, I try to keep them covered up. That's why I keep my hair short. But yeah, I don't mind grey hairs as long as I don't go bald.
Football seems to be far away for Steve when he's walking his dogs near his home in the Staffordshire countryside. Or when he's at home with his sons Joe and Jack, who seems to be copying the famous hairstyle and maybe picking up a few soccer tips from his dad. But after the managers and the players and the fans have had their say, what about Bull on ball? How would he like to be remembered as a player?
He gives 100%, and that 100% brings all the rewards, the merits, the goals, and whatever he achieved in the game.
One man, one club, there's only one Steve Ball. From factory floor to England centre forward, one of the great modern-day legends of sport.